It's a mechanism created by India to hold interactions at the level of heads of states of African countries and the Indian government. Every 3 years since 2008, Government of India has held an India-Africa summit. The first one was held in New Delhi. The next one in 2011 was held in Addis Ababa. In the first two summits, 15 countries were invited through the African Union. But this time around, Government of India has extended invitations to all 54 heads of states of African countries and the African Union itself. 42 heads of states are coming, and the rest of the countries are represented by senior ministers. In holding these conferences, Government of India is doing precisely what other countries have done. There is a EU-Africa summit, there is a US-Africa summit, a Japan-Africa summit, and a summit that China holds and calls it the Forum for China-Africa Cooperation. Africa is rich in natural resources and is the world's third fastest growing economic region. It's urbanizing very fast. Its rate of urbanization, for example, is faster than that of India's, and for these reasons everyone in the world thinks that it's a largest potential destination for foreign direct investment today. India would also like to be a part of that investment boom that's taking place in Africa. India's interests are economic, but they're also energy related. Africa is emerging as one of the big sources of petrochemicals, and India would like to diversify its energy supplies. India is also investing in oil exploration and oil development in Africa. But India's interests are not limited only to economic, they're also political and strategic. India would like African countries to develop a common point of view with it on regional and international issues, on countering terrorism, on countering piracy, on negotiating climate change, and in WTO negotiations. Lastly, India also wants the support of African countries for its candidacy for the UN Security Council as and when it is expanded. Well, there are two issues here, one of trade, the other one of investment. As far as trade is concerned, India's trade with Africa has been growing at 30% annually. It is estimated to be between $70 billion and $90 billion by the end of this year, but it is well below its potential. Contrast this, for example, with China, where the trade with Africa is $200 billion. In terms of investment, India is the fifth largest investor in Africa. Indian investment that goes into Africa is more than 20% of all its investment that goes abroad. That is more than 1/5 of India's FDI. Indian private companies have also had a footprint in Africa. Tata, Bajaj, Mahindra, Airtel and some agricultural companies are pretty well known in Africa, but Indian companies by and large have ridden piggy bank on Government of India's lines of credit to Africa. They need to be more proactive. They need to be taking entrepreneurial risks in Africa, and for this Government of India itself needs to be more proactive towards Africa. The primary focus is likely to be on capacity building and training and human resource development. The other areas that will be focused on are education, science and technology, health, agriculture, food security and industrial development, especially small and medium enterprises, infrastructure development. And also India has invested heavily into what is called a Pan-African e-network for distance education and telemedicine. That is likely to be expanded. India is also helping the African countries set up independent judicial systems which are free of the regimes that have marred Africa, if one were to put it mildly. Well, the outcome of these summits in the immediate sense don't seem tangible, but in the long run they mean a lot. What will happen in this summit is that there will be a declaration at the end of the summit after the heads of states meet on 30th of October, and an action plan will also be announced. The declaration will be more general in nature. It will emphasize common views of African countries and India on regional and international issues, on terrorism, climate change, WTO negotiations, expansion of the UN Security Council. The action plan will focus on specific areas of cooperation that the two sides have identified. The overall outcome of the summit really would be forging closer ties between India and Africa, which are economic, political and strategic in nature.